Right. Hello, everyone. My name is Afroz Matari Kazarni, and I'm an associate professor of operations and supply chain management at Widener University in Pennsylvania. And I am the junior VP of meetings for the Women in Operations Research and Management Sciences, the Worms Forum for Informs. On behalf of Forums, I'd like to welcome everybody to today's webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. Today's title for our webinar is The Human Judgment in the Age of AI, Women Designing Better Decisions. We are very thrilled to have four distinguished panelists today with us who are going to share their perspectives on relations between human judgment and AI-enabled decision-making. So our panelists today are Dr. Negin from MIT Sloan. We have Dr. Phebe Vayanos from University of Southern California with us. We have Dr. Nadia Larici from Polytechnique Montréal and Dr. Jeannie Gatewood from Drexel University. Again, thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. Now, during the session, please feel free to submit your question through the Q&A feature that you see at the bottom of your Zoom. If you have any question, just feel free to post it there. We'll have some time for the audience questions towards the end of the webinar. Before we begin with the general panel questions, I'd like to invite each of our panelists to briefly introduce themselves, share just a little bit about their background, their work, particularly as it relates to our today's topic of the webinar. Dr. Golrezaei, would you mind starting with that?
Yes, thank you, Afroz, and thank you for organizing this panel, and it's great to be part of it. So I'm Negin Golrezaei. I'm a professor at MIT Sloan, and my research is at the intersection of AI and digital marketplaces. I study how platform and firms can use AIs for decisions such as like product ranking, advertising, pricing, and resource allocation. One of the so I've been also working with Google and Meta in terms of like bringing AI and ML algorithms into their marketplaces, including online advertising market and e-commerce. And these days, I'm studying like AI meditated and agentic commerce, where AI assistant increasingly make recommendation and transaction on behalf of customers. And there are a lot of interesting questions here that some of it I try to raise it in today's panel. It's great to be part of this. Thank you for having.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Negin. Next, Dr. Vayanos, if you can go ahead with your introduction, that would be great.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for organizing the panel and for inviting me to be part of it. I'm very honored. So my name is Phoebe Vayanos. I'm an associate professor of industrial and systems engineering and of computer science at the University of Southern California. There I also co-direct the Center for AI in Society, which is an interdisciplinary initiative between the schools of engineering and social work at USC. We've been running this for over a decade now, and it was one of the first centers of its kind in the world. More recently, we've launched an interdisciplinary program in operations research and AI that basically trains students on integrating AI and OR technologies to solve problems that couldn't be solved by any discipline in silo. So my research is broadly on integrating AI and OR to design better AI-enabled decision systems, and in particular motivated by societally important applications, such as trying to decide how to better allocate very scarce housing resources to people experiencing homelessness, how to design personalized substance use prevention interventions, or suicide prevention interventions. So in a lot of my work, we collaborate with either public health organizations or people in the community, such as people experiencing homelessness or policymakers, to try and design systems that align with what the community or policymakers or more generally the system stakeholders would like it to do. So this raises interesting questions regarding trade-offs between, efficiency. On the one hand, we want to use our resources as best as possible in terms of, for example, having as many exits from homelessness as possible. But then, we want the system to also be fair in some way. And there's different ways to think about fairness. So how can we think about these things and maybe use tools from our community to help kind of understand those trade-offs and design systems that are going to perform in ways that we want. Ultimately, my goal is to kind of, do the nice math behind things, but then have systems that can be deployed and decision support tools that can be deployed and make an impact. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Phoebe. We're definitely going to touch up on the fairness concept as it relates to AI as we go on through the panel discussions too. Dr. Larici, would you mind going ahead for some introductions?
Of course. So Nadia Larici, I'm a professor at Polytechnique Montreal. It's the cousin Canadian. So that's the engineering school. I think many of the community, they know about the Montreal group, mostly in transportation. I'm also the co-director of the CIRELT, which is the research center specialized in all the routing, logistics, and other kind of applications. So my research is mostly aligned on applying OR to healthcare systems. So basically everything that has to do with wait times, trying to improve that, appointment booking, scheduling, OR, staff. This is the kind of research that I like the most, and I'm very versatile in terms of methodology. I would put it more that I'm driven more by the application than the method itself, and then I would just find the right tool whenever it's necessary. These days, I'm really aligned with trying to make sure that actually what we develop with the group is used. So I think that this panel today is very much aligned with the trends of how can you make sure that all the work that we're doing, is it really applied? Is it useful? Or are we just having a lot of fun, scientifically speaking? Yeah, so that would be it for me. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nadia. Dr. Gatewood, please go ahead.
Also, hello, everyone. I am that use case for all of the algorithms being developed. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I'm honored to join such an accomplished group of panelists. I'm Jeannie Magdalena Gatewood. I'm a doctoral graduate from Drexel University, LeBeau College of Business, and I'm also the owner and principal of Gatewood Global, which is a clinical research consulting firm. And then finally, I'm the president of Advanced Research Institute, focusing on clinical trials first in human in Salt Lake City, Utah. So for more than 3 decades, I've worked at the intersection of oncology, clinical research, biotech, digital health, and healthcare operations. And I've led programs where decisions carry real consequences for research participants, for healthcare providers, for biopharma tech organizations, and ultimately the patients who might benefit from scientific discovery. So I've always been drawn to what's possible. And long before my doctoral research, I was exploring how emerging technologies, including AI, machine learning, and NLP, could transform clinical research and the operations that are associated with it. And that experience convinced me that technology itself is only part of the story. My doctoral research shifted my focus to a broader question. How do organizations create, govern, share, and use evidence to support trustworthy decisions? And one lesson stood out to me, and that is that technology creates possibilities, but organizations determine whether those possibilities become meaningful improvements. So that realization is what led me and my colleagues to what we call integrated intelligence. And that's the idea that our best decisions come from thoughtfully integrated human judgment, trustworthy evidence, and organizational governance, and AI. And as AI has become increasingly embedded in decision-making, I'm less interested in what our models can predict than in the environments where those predictions are interpreted, trusted, and acted upon. I've come to think of organizations as decision ecosystems, and AI is an extraordinary and new participant in those ecosystems. But we, the people, still design them and we govern them and ultimately decide how they're used. So I'm really looking forward to exploring how we build that kind of integrated intelligence with my fellow panelists and then with all of the participants today. So I appreciate the opportunity to dialogue. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jenny. I'm hopeful that we will be covering some of these concepts and discussion points that you raised as well. Before we move on to the panel discussion, once again, I want to thank and appreciate all of you being here and sharing your knowledge and insight with our attendees here. So in terms of the panel discussion question, the first question that I would like to have, and that's going to be for the entire panel here. We are told that AI is transforming decisions everywhere, but transformation, as it stands, it doesn't necessarily mean the same as improvement. I'd like to ask, in your view, what is that single biggest misconception that people have about the AI, about the decision making in today's world? And what is that reality that we should be actually talking and thinking about instead? So it's open to the entire panel.
Yeah, maybe I can start. I think that one of the biggest misconception is that because AI really sounds intelligent, people might actually think that AI is also capable of almost doing anything reliably, which is not definitely true. So usually like people put too much trust in AI responses because they're very polished, they look very confident and very convincing. And but then surprisingly, they actually struggle with very simple tasks like keeping track of dates, constraint, or combining and understanding multiple pieces of information at once. So a funny thing that happened to me, I just like it's kind of embarrassing to admit that, but just to make my point more clear is that I was organizing a personal trip and I share my flight information and so that the AI can help me with booking a hotel room. So AI failed to notice that my flight was an overnight flight, and then I would arrive the following day. So based on the recommendation that AI provided to me, and I was like busy actually checking it out, I booked a hotel for the room that I did not need that. So that would cost me $300. That was so, but. It was a simple date calculation, and AI like did not even realize the issue. But similar things also exist in like shopping, for example. That again, like I have done like a case study to understand that, given I'm working on agentic commerce. So if you like look for like a certain product, like with a given ETA or a certain like an you have like a budget in mind, so AI may come back and recommend very highly relevant product that at the surface look amazing, but when you go deep you will see that some of them are actually over budget, some of them are not even reliable, are not even available. So then you see that like simple constraint that you as a user you expect that AI would be able to understand, because it would be a simple filtering, right? So even non-agentic system are able to do that. They are failing to do that. So I feel like the danger here is that it's not only that AI can be wrong, it's kind of they can be wrong in a way that sounds completely right. So, and that already cost me some money. And yeah, I really hope that people start looking more deeply into this issue that I really think that exists.
Absolutely. That's really like warning, a warning sign to be more careful about everything that you're sharing and deciding based on AI. Anybody else from our panel that would like to share their perspective?
Yeah, sure. Maybe I can just go. Sorry, did somebody want to say something?
Go for it. Go for it, Peg. I
Oh,
can
okay.
wait.
So like to me, like obviously when I just read the question, to me, since I'm from the kind of optimization background, so to me, improvement means I'm optimizing something, and definitely AI does not necessarily mean optimizing. So I totally agree with Negin that it's definitely a buzzword. It's powerful. It is powerful. So we have to give it, right? We have to give it that. But, like the right tool for the right problem, I think would be better. So I think the misconception to me is that better decisions, like using AI, it does not mean a better decision from the optimization point of view. Obviously, it is, you have AI here, it's forecasting, recognizing patterns, it's learning, it's great. And then you have optimization, which is trying to do the best with what it has. So to me, it's two different fields that can be obviously combined, and that should be combined when it's needed. So I think that you have AI, it's perfect. It does what it's supposed to do. But maybe the real question is do you really think that the practitioners are ready to use decision support tools in their daily work? I know that Jenny's here and she's probably you're totally into in that field and you're super active. But to me, since I'm working in healthcare, I'm not on the clinical side of it, but more on the operations, logistics, trying to improve patient flow and all that. It does not feel that they're that ready. But what I like about this super buzz is that now everyone wants to use some kind of AI. They don't really know what kind of AI, but they want to use it. So let's just try to use something to do better, not knowing if it's really to optimize or if it's to predict better or to forecast or just to be to increase awareness. It is already something good to increase awareness in some of the fields, just having these being applied sometimes. Yeah.
Perfect.
We never
Great.
had
Thank
that
you.
just with optimization.
Yeah.
We could never increase this, have this complete buzz, although we were doing really great things for the last many decades. Yeah.
Absolutely. Totally agree on that. Phoebe, would you like to share your insights
Yeah,
as well?
sure. I'm happy to go next, and it's kind of aligned with what Nadia was saying. So, in my view, the biggest misconception that I keep seeing quite a bit in my collaborations is that if we have a system, if we use data in a way that we're going to make more accurate predictions and even more fair predictions, for example, if we're trying to predict like who's at greatest risk of some bad outcome, then we're going to also have a decision system that is better and more fair and whatnot. And unfortunately, the two, one does not imply the other, unfortunately. So we can have a tool that's super accurate at predicting outcomes, that's even fair, that's making like similar mistakes for different groups of people and so on, but then use those predictions in like not the right way. For example, the example that I keep seeing is prioritizing people based on some super accurate risk score to give them very scarce resources. And we work hard to make that risk score very accurate, very fair and whatnot. But then if we just bucketize to decide, okay, I'm going to give like resources to those who are the most vulnerable, then it doesn't necessarily translate to fairness or to efficiency in the way that actually those communities would like it to happen. So really there needs to be some sort of education from us to people who are more familiar with working with predictions to say, look, these are not the same. So in the context of what I'm working on, risk score learning is not the same as, matching. So making good resource allocation decisions and good matching between people and resources. And we can really make a far more better job at improving system efficiency and at really optimizing, like Nadia was saying, things that people actually care about, that the people who are affected by the system actually care about and use to evaluate how the system is doing. We as ORMS practitioners can really make improvements there. So, we're going to make the more accurate predictions, but then also feed them into some system that can optimize how we're doing things to really yield outcomes and overall decisions that people want.
Absolutely. I hope every single one of us have this thought at the back of our mind when we are using AI and integrating that in our optimization practices. Jenny, would you like to share your thoughts, especially
Sure.
coming from
Yeah, of
practice?
course. Right. From the perspective of an organization making consequential decisions, what we really need to be talking about instead is a really deeper question, right? So right now we acknowledge the biggest misconception is that AI will all on its own make better decisions, but that's not true. So the challenge is innately organizational, where the technology is scaling information, but organizations determine whether wisdom scales with it. And so the organization creates the culture, the incentives, and the trust that turns information into good decisions. And that's why I think AI doesn't just change decisions, it also changes the decision makers. It makes them evaluate evidence, how quickly we act, who do we trust, what do we trust, and ultimately who's accountable for the outcomes then, right? So for me, the conversation is about building smarter AI while building organizations that know how to make better decisions with AI. So the future of AI is going to be really determined by the intelligence of our technology combined with the wisdom of the organizations from a practical standpoint.
Absolutely, totally
Can I
agree.
ask
Yeah,
Jenny a
absolutely.
question? I just want to see an example of like successful integration within like and maybe organizations that you work with. Like, what are the good practices uh, that you think that people should follow in order to bring AI to organizations? Not only just talk about it, right? Bring it and gain the value out of it.
Is that question directed to me?
Yes, yes,
Oh,
please.
okay, great. Well, so I can tell you that as a part of my doctoral studies, I conducted a qualitative research study of research executives across the spectrum here. And what we determined was that there really is not a state of readiness within these organizations. So that's problematic, right? We can design the best algorithms in the world, but if there's not this sense of readiness. So how do we get the organizations ready? That's the thing, right? So when the organizations are planning on what tools or what have you, they'll say, oh, what's the functionality of this AI? That's typically their leading question, but not what is it that we're attempting to create? Beginning with the end in mind is not really there. So, based upon that work, I actually formed a concept called Integris, which over time has now evolved, where I'm talking more about integrated intelligence. And that's where, there's a real partnership, but a challenging partnership because in my industry, in healthcare, in clinical research, we debate each other constantly, ferociously. And so we need to get comfortable with asking those same questions of the AI tools and algorithms that are being presented with us. So that's where I see the most practical use and changes in how we're approaching AI and the design. Now, thankfully, I'm on both sides of the equation. I'm in clinical practice and research practice, but now I'm also, scientific researcher. And so, in designing algorithms the way I had thought that one should in the past has absolutely changed. So gaining this information from the practitioners has really been quite valuable. And not any of us will actually think the same. You can ask 90 of us practitioners and you will get 90 different perspectives. So that's always, something challenging when we're thinking about those smarter algorithms.
All right, perfect. Thank you all. I just want to repeat to our audience that if you have any question at any point, please feel free to put that in the Q&A box on your Zoom panel, and we would be happy to address that at the end of the webinar. Now, let's move and turn to some of the specific challenges involved in designing, implementing AI. And I'd like to ask these as individual questions, starting with Dr. Golrezaei. So, Negin, you have worked with, as you mentioned, companies like Google, Meta, and large-scaled algorithms. Based on your experience, what makes users trust or distrust an algorithm recommendation? How do you design systems that earn that trust rather than simply optimizing for that best outcome?
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you for the question. I just want to also like put it out there that I'm also founder of a new company called Agent Gora. which is kind of in the space of AI and commerce. So then some of the things that I mentioned is also like related to Agent Gora as well. So I feel like, and I've been thinking about this question a lot because this is kind of as people, as users started using AI increasingly for recommendation, this question become more and more important. So to me is like one thing is that maybe users are okay not to have like a perfect AI system, but they want to see some level of consistency on the details that actually matters to them. And one of the things that I feel like is kind of could break that trust is that when the system end up like giving you very polished and confident recommendation, but overlook kind of basic facts and constraint, and which actually happened to me. The other like second important fact is that sometimes like systems actually like fails to communicate the uncertainty that they have about the responses that they provide. Today if you ask the AI about a certain like product that you want to purchase, whether they are like confident or not, whether they are doing it like a weak inference based on like a limited information, or they're just providing a well supported conclusion based on like a significant amount of data, the like product data or other information they might have, the tone like is are the same. Like it does not really reflect whether they are uncertain about the answer that they provide, and that makes it very difficult for the user to know when they can actually try trust the answer, and then when they should actually go ahead and verify that, right? So because people should be always like maybe like for some people it's like black and white, so some people always like try to verify AI answer, and some people don't do it regardless. So but if AI end up like communicating where this like an these answers are trustworthy, the recommendation are trustworthy, so maybe that would actually help the user trust it more. um, the other key aspect is that whether like what's the like how we are using this recommendation depends like what is the stake, is this the stake is really high for this particular recommendation. So I may be okay with accepting a like an very rough recommendation from AI when choosing a restaurant, because worst case scenario is that I'm gonna have a bad dinner so it's nothing is gonna happen, or maybe I waste like $100 on that, but this should be fine. But then if I want to make like an financial decision or want to buy have it like a big purchases like buying a car, so then I expect like a stronger evidence verification, and I want AI to actually like tell me when they are like an on tell me about uncertainties that they have in the answer they provide to me, rather than just try to convince me one way or another. So yeah, these are a few points that I wanted to highlight that is good to keep in mind when we are designing recommendation system in agentic.
These are wonderful points. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'd like to move on to the next question, which is from Dr. Vayanos. So Phoebe, one of the sorry, big challenges is fairness, as you also mentioned before, which could actually mean different things to different people. It could bring up the concept of equal outcome, equal opportunities, equal treatments, or even other definitions. So, how do you design AI systems that are genuinely fair when fairness itself is vague, it's so contested? How can we explain these trade-offs to decision makers who are not mathematicians out there?
Thank you for the question, Afroz. That's
Sure.
a very interesting question. So the first thing we need to do is to kind of acknowledge that, as you mentioned, there's no single way of defining what is fairness. And first of all, there are different settings would require different notions of fairness, and even in the same situation, different people may consider different things to be fair. So it seems like an impossible problem, right? A different mathematical definition of fairness is going to encode different values, different ethics, and in fact, different notions of fairness can be difficult to satisfy simultaneously. As an example, in the context of resource allocation that I mentioned earlier, and like you said, right, we may want our system to allocate resources equally or at the same rate to different groups of people, or we may say we want to prioritize those who are most at risk of a bad outcome. That's also a very defensible notion of fairness. That's not like a parity notion of fairness. Or we may want to prioritize those who are more vulnerable in some sense, for example, like older people. Or we may think really about outcomes. What will happen if I take such and such decision? Who's gonna, if I allocate resources in such and such way? We saw it with COVID, right? During the pandemic, very limited resources. Depending on who you prioritize and how you triage, different people are going to have different outcomes, right? So our decisions really impact fairness. And so all this to say, A, it's a very difficult problem, but B, I don't see our role as being like a prescriptive one of saying, oh, in this context, here's how we need to define fairness, and just say, oh, here's how we define it, and here's your fair system. Really, what we need to do is to try and provide some level of transparency of, look, if you choose to make these kinds of decisions to prioritize people in such and such way, or if you use this algorithm or this human-driven decisions for deciding who gets what, this is what will happen. Here is who will be getting resources. Here is what such and such fairness metric will look like, and such and such. So really, our role is to kind of help anticipate what the outcomes of the system will be, and how fairness will look like, or how these different notions of fairness will look like. And the way to do that is really to work with the communities, with frontline service providers, with social workers, policymakers, organizational leaders, and try to understand what are the things they care about and the different notions of fairness that they care about, and try to design systems that are going to align with those values, as I was saying earlier, but also, provide like simulations, as we would call it, that would show what would happen under different scenarios that they are considering for allocating resources or for making decisions. So in our work on homelessness, for example, we examined policies that look at fairness in allocation and fairness in outcomes. So and we saw that actually the two are not compatible with one another. We were able to show how having one or the other definition impacts who is getting housing. So maybe perhaps even if we choose to have fairness in outcomes, we can have something that's not too far from fairness in allocation. We try to showcase how efficiency is impacted when we go with such and such definition of fairness, and kind of by being able to illustrate these ideas in without math, and in graphs that actually stakeholders are used to seeing, because they evaluate their systems a posteriori in some way, right? They use some way of measuring fairness. We can just anticipate these, but show them in ways that they are familiar with. What else can I tell you? In general, so in our work with partners, many of whom are non-technical, we try to avoid kind of mathematical definitions and just try to start from their point of view. How do they think about fairness? How do they measure it? And sometimes it's the same notion, just like flipped. It's as simple as that, and it just makes it a lot easier for them to interpret it and understand it. And that's what drives kind of our work and how we go about defining things, how we go about imposing fairness constraints in our systems and optimization models. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is to showcase the trade-offs that happen and try to eliminate to the extent possible disagreement between, because even when you're designing a single system, again, different people are gonna want different things. So it's really about trying to facilitate this conversation and this debate around the different values and around what we want the system to be doing. So I see our role as just helping disentangle this challenge and helping facilitate the conversation around those very difficult questions and yeah.
That's fantastic. I totally agree that one of the key things here is to have that openness, to have that transparency, that even fairness, as it can be defined in different ways, we need to keep that open mind. We need to make sure that the different stakeholders are understandable of this vagueness and define it case by case as it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you again for sharing your insight on that. I'd like to shift the gears just a little bit to talk about regulations next. And this question is for Dr. Gatewood. So Jeannie, you have worked, as you mentioned, in the intersection of AI, biotech, and clinical research. It's a space that is heavily regulated when it comes to healthcare, right? So from your perspective, what is the most blind spot that organizations have when adopting AI in clinical or regulatory contexts? And what keeps you up at night about how AI is being governed in healthcare in general?
Well, so with that two-part question, regarding regulatory issues, our blind spots have to do with not just that the organization assumes that AI adoption begins when the technology arrives, because it does not. It begins much earlier, with organizational readiness, as I've discussed earlier in answer to Negin's question. But I think that part of what we're thinking about is in healthcare, in clinical research, we spend a great deal of time evaluating the technology under very strict regulatory issues. We're implanting cardiac devices, which now we're programming, we're testing wearables, we're creating digital twins for preclinical research before we actually put them in the human being. So these are a lot of the concerns regulatory-wise that we deal with. And so part of the questions that we need to always ask is, well, is it accurate? Is this AI tool validated? Is it compliant with the regulations? And these are really, essential questions. And they're not really sufficient, though, because we also have to ask whether the organization is prepared to use that technology responsibly. We've seen in some cases, think of Theranos, the technology was not used responsibly. So, we have to ask the organization themselves in revealing the blind spot, do they have the right governance in place? Is there a very clear train of accountability? Is there really high quality evidence? And then we have to design the workflows to support that human oversight. And perhaps really even more importantly, we have to create a culture where people are encouraged to question the AI recommendations rather than simply accept them, right? So the technology, as we see it right now, is being implemented much faster than organizations can adapt. And that's where many AI initiatives are struggling. And it's not because the algorithms are, misdesigned. It's really because the surrounding systems haven't, evolved at the same pace. So, and then moving on to what keeps me up at night, I'll tell you about my nightmare. It was my dissertation work, right? And that has to do with AI being trained on evidence that we already know can be incomplete, delayed, inconsistently reported. And as more AI tools begin incorporating large public clinical research repositories, this becomes an AI governance challenge. It's not a data challenge. This is governance itself. My dissertation examined more than 100,000 clinical trials and found that timely reporting of primary outcome results remains extraordinarily low. I followed up on work that was just a 3-year snippet done by my colleagues at Oxford University and testified for at Parliament. And so what we have found, though, is that AI doesn't eliminate the weaknesses in the evidence ecosystem. It actually inherits them and then scales them. And so when we don't improve the integrity of that evidence, AI will simply scale the consequences of the weaknesses. And one of the outcomes of that work has been developing a curated research data set designed to address some of those evidence quality challenges. So from my perspective, responsible AI, beyond deployment of better technologies and algorithms, the future of trustworthy AI depends on the integrity of the evidence ecosystem that even informs it at the beginning. And also then on building organizations that are prepared to govern it thoughtfully and question it appropriately rather than buying it. I have a key example. One of the largest AI providers that you all know the name of, and I'm not going to utter, has created a plugin for clinicaltrials.gov. They have scaled burning hot garbage, and that is now informing our pharmaceutical development industry. That's a nightmare. It keeps me up every night, and I'm tired. And so hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. These are really things to think about, especially for our audience here. Now, I'd like to take this one step further with my next question from Dr. Larici. So, Nadia, trust is often framed as a technical problem, as in, or when we say, let's make AI more accurate and people are gonna trust it eventually. But is that really true? What actually builds or break that trust in an AI system? Is it the accuracy? Is it the transparency? Is it the explainability? Or is it something entirely different? Love to hear your thoughts on that.
Thank you very much for the question. I really like it. So I do have a story to share, but before I share it, I'm just going to start by saying that in my experience, the answer is no. Like, just to be clear, I do not think that it's only based on accuracy. So it's not true that getting an algorithm or one model more accurate, people are going to trust the outcome. I think that the reason why we focus too much on accuracy is because it's fascinating. We want to solve the problem. It's a race. If you want to publish the paper, you need to have that super nice column in the table that says 97%, 90 or 90% or anything. And you would think that if you do not have an accuracy of at least 90%, then your model is not good. Now comes my story. I have one of my colleagues, collaborator in different projects, who's a doctor, but who's also very knowledgeable because he's an expert AI user. He would be using the data because he wants to predict stuff, understand how it works. And his first comment, if he sees an accuracy of 95%, he's gonna say your data is biased. There's no way that you can get an accuracy of 95% just like that if you have real data, because data has noise, data has bias, you need to play with it. So he would not believe in it. So basically, good accuracy for some people may mean this is really good, but for others, it does not mean that at all. So like to me, it's probably also because of how the media is talking about the hallucinations and the mistakes and all that. So we put a lot of focus on accuracy, which is totally fine. I mean, it is one of the component, okay? Like it's not true, forget about it. No, but it's not the only one. And you mentioned many other explanations, or at least possible explanations. Like we've heard about explainability, of course. So explainability, you want to know how it works or why it's predicting this value or why it's giving this solution. I'm gonna say that to me, the key ingredient could be understanding. So it's not exactly the same thing, but I think that the practitioners, so obviously I'm very much focused on the healthcare applications, but the practitioners, they need to get a reasonable sense of what's happening behind the scenes. I'm just saying reasonable. I'm not asking that they understand that you have the simplex, that you have optimality gaps. Obviously not, but at least when you're building the solution, they need to understand that, well, this makes sense. This makes sense. Oh, you added this constraint. So now this problem has disappeared. So I think like I have many answers to this question. So it's not only accuracy, it's definitely understanding, it's definitely explainability, it's definitely transparency also, because having a black box and I will not be explaining anything about what's happening is not going to help your case. So I think what's really important actually to build the trust. So first, it takes time. I think everyone mentioned this. Phoebe discussed how you need to define fairness because everyone has a different definition of fairness. We can even go further and say that we all speak different languages because we speak to practitioners. So I would say it takes time. It takes experience. If you want a practitioner to test the system, see if it works well, you need also to show when it's not working well because it has limitations, because every system has limitations. You need to give the opportunity to challenge the recommendations. And I think that this really is what it develops trust because like to me, it's for decision support. I have a multi-objective function. I can play with the weight. I can say, well, if you want better this one, look at the results. So you need to put the effort, you need to put the time. And this is probably what is the most important. The rest, I'm gonna say it's a need, like you need to have like all the other criteria, but it's none of them that's gonna get you to have your practitioner just go and use your system. So I think if I was to summarize it, I would say code development. If you start working and you co-develop an algorithm, even though if you know the answer, because it's going to be a MIP, just model it and solve it, but it's fine. But working together to build the algorithm, that's going to make people trust that the solutions actually are solving the right problem, because maybe you did not understand each other, and that the solutions make sense. And to me, that is really what's the most important.
Absolutely. I truly appreciate your perspective. It's collaboration and communication that makes everything much easier and useful as we work with different partners on this. Now, in the interest of time, I'd like to move to our last question, a short and sweet one, which is for the entire panel. If you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about how AI is currently designed and deployed or governed, what would you change and why? It's open to everyone.
Yeah, maybe I can tell like one point of view that I have. I feel like again, this is one of the biggest like misconception that in the US people have about AI. People like think that um, when it comes to AI and humans are like substitute of each other, right? And that's why like, and there are people like some people are really afraid of AI. They think that AI is gonna steal their job because, and we have seen an evidence of that. I don't think that they're wrong like having that fear. So is there. So, but to me, that's a wrong way of thinking about it. So if it's not like we should not really thinking about AI and human or like substitute of each other, but they may actually like be able like to complement each other in a sense that thinking about like an simple task of like an unbutton a shirt, right? So as a human, we are really good at it. But if I want to make a robot that just is able to do this task, maybe I like waste a lot of resources and energy on doing that. Like, then why do we want to do that? We are already good at it. So why don't we like try to design a system that is helping human rather than replacing human? And this is that is also related to the AI governance, right? So let's use like human in areas that actually helping AI to have a reliable system, and let AI take care of like an automation and the tedious task that we are not so good at it. So that mindset, I don't think that is there. I don't think is within like an organizations. Like right now, a lot of like companies are like thinking like very greedily how I'm gonna like be able to reduce my labor costs, and replacing my workers and engineers with AI, but like the alternative would be, how can I like empower these people? How can I help them like gain more skills, and then they become like an more innovative within the system. So I don't think that mindset is there, and I really hope that companies started thinking that AI and humans can actually complement each other rather than being substitute.
Perfect. Anybody else who would like to jump in?
Sure, I'll just dovetail on that comment. And, if I could wave a magic wand, and I can ask anyone that knows me, I really wouldn't change the AI first. It's the step before that I would look at. And that's where I would redesign our relationship with uncertainty. Right, Nadia was talking about the validity of our algorithms and such. And so, within my own field, uncertainty is just a given, right? And so, how organizations think about certainty versus uncertainty. So often, when organizations and people are using AI, they expect it to give us the answer. And really, the greatest value is really just helping us ask better questions, evaluate the evidence better, and make really just much better informed decisions in the face of uncertainty, right? In clinical practice. So in healthcare and clinical research, uncertainty is not a flaw in the system. It is the reality we work with every single day. 75% of the drugs that make it from preclinical into the clinical arena will fail. And so uncertainty is our name. So responsible AI wouldn't create the illusion of certainty. It would help us navigate complexity more thoughtfully, more transparently. I heard someone mention earlier, and then with greater humility, right? Get our egos out of the way. So, unfortunately, I don't think that trustworthy AI is built by only smarter algorithms. It's built also by the organizations and the people that value curiosity over certainty and learning over perfection, right? We see these tendencies. And then also governance that earns trust over time, because the goal has really never been about artificial intelligence in my industry. The goal has always been about making better human decisions, right? Am I right?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for all this insightful perspective. Just for the sake of time, I'd like to move on to the audience questions. So for our audience, if you guys have any question, please feel free to put that in the Q&A feature. And I already see one posted, which I'm gonna read. And again, anybody from our panel, please feel free to go over that. So the first question is, as a healthcare management professor, my research agenda focuses on business of healthcare and includes healthcare system financials as well as risk analysis and underwriting. I have read that some insurers are testing AI for claims adjudications. Hopefully, I'm reading it correctly. In efforts to expedite decision time or payment and possibly reducing utilization review staff. As AI is trained to review or adjudicate high-risk claims, how can we prevent blanket claims for rich or high dollar frequency denied conditions? Anybody would like to jump in for that question?
So I'm not sure I have an answer to that question, but I think it's really aligned to what we all said earlier, that it should not be used because we do not think that an AI should make recommendation and the final decision. We like everything I think we have discussed since the beginning is that it's supposed to be a decision support with human in the loop, not forget about the human and let's just make a decision. So I think like we were aligned. So I don't know exactly. Let's speak to the insurer maybe and make sure that we can invite them to next panel to increase awareness that please don't forget that the human needs to be in the loop. You can't just judge with data and then because based on some algorithm.
Yeah, very Anybody else? Or anybody from our audience who might have questions? I don't see anything else on the Q&A. If you have any question, please feel free to put it there.
I mean, I can add a little bit, really aligned with what Nadia was saying.
Absolutely.
This goes precisely along the line of, a good prediction doesn't necessarily lead to a good decision. So we're saying, oh, this person is high risk, so let's, deny the claim. But that's not how it works. We need to think, okay, ultimately, what are our values? How do we want? What do we want the outcomes to be in this system? And let's design decisions tailored to the outcomes we want, as opposed to just like bluntly using the prediction to make those like bucketed decisions. Oh, you're in this high risk bucket, that's it.
Wonderful. All right, since I don't see any more questions coming in and we are getting close to the end of our webinar time, I'd like to once again thank all our 4 panelists here, Negin, Phoebe, Nadia, Jeannie, thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing your insightful perspectives on our concept of human judgment, AI-enabled decision making. It was a wonderful discussion here. I'd like to also thank my fellow Worms board members for their help and support in organizing this webinar. For those of you in the audience who are not currently Worms members and would like to join and be involved, we definitely welcome you. It's greatly appreciated to have your support. You can join the Worms through the Informs website, either when you're renewing your Informs membership or separately. Additionally, I want to highlight that the recording of this webinar would be made available through the Worms media channels. And thank you again for joining us. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you at future Worms events.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you for
Thank you so
organizing.
much.
Absolutely. Thank
Thank
you.
Thanks a lot, Afroz.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, ladies.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.